to my lab. I'm Kinetic Crystal, and I'm here to help science be fun. And learning should be fun. And I'm an actual scientist.
So what are we learning today? Kinetic Crystal.
We're asking today, will an egg float in water or will it sink? And then what happens if we make salt water or even sugar water? Will that make a difference? What do you think? For today's experiment, you're going to need 2 cups or 3 warm water, salt, sugar, an egg, and a spoon. And I'm using food coloring because food coloring is fun. In today's experiment, we're going to use the same volume of water, 1 cup in each of our cups. We'll have 1 cup of water plus whatever sugar and salt dissolves in it. Then we will measure its mass. And we measure mass by weighing it on a scale. So I will show you that. When we know the mass and the volume of something, we can then determine the density. And the density is important because that is what's going to show, will our egg float or not? If it's less dense than salt water, it'll float. Or if it's more dense than salt water, it's gonna sink. Or with our plain water, will it make a difference whether or not it'll sink or float? The first thing we need to do is prepare our water. So I'm gonna get some warm water because warm, it speeds up the dissolving process of salt and sugar. So does the stirring action, just in case you didn't know. I'm going to measure 1 cup of water into each cup. Now we're gonna add sugar to 1 until it won't dissolve anymore. See, it completely dissolved still. Now let's do our salt. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some coloring so we know. This is sugar, it's gonna be orange. We'll do salt as blue, like the ocean. And our plain water will be purple. So we have our sugar water, our salt water, and our plain water. I have a lot of sugar dissolved and I ran out of salt, which I think it's kind of still not dissolving, which is where you want it to be. You wanna keep pouring until it won't dissolve anymore. Let's do the mass of each object. Our plain water is first 18.8 ounces. And our sugar water, whoa, 20.8. And our salt water, 20.3. Amazing. Now that we've measured our water and checked the mass, we know that salt water and the sugar water is more mass and also more dense than our plain water. Are you ready to see how our egg floats or sinks? Which one should we try first? We'll start with the lightest. Let's test the egg in our plain water. I'm gonna use a spoon to carefully put it in the water. Here's our plain water. Oh, it sinks. Okay, so now the true test is, will it float in our salt water? Here we go. This is our salt water. Oh my gosh, it's floating. Do you see that? It's floating. Our sugar water is even more dense than the salt, so it should really float. Here we go. Do you see it? It's still floating. How cool is that? Our egg is less dense than the salt water and the sugar water, which is why it floats. Now I want to see what happens when we add the plain water on top of the salt water with the egg already in it. Our egg is in our salt water floating, and let's add our plain water to it very carefully. It stayed in the middle where it was. It stayed floating, even though we added plain water on top. How amazing is that? Science is so cool and fun. I hope you enjoyed doing this. I hope you did it with me, and I'll see you next time on Kinetic Crystal. Be sure to like and subscribe. Thanks!
When you use science correctly, you can always figure out collecting facts and observations and testing hypotheses. You take your results and compare to see what else there is. And after you fully understand everything you're hearing, you can put it all together in a scientific theory. Kinetic Crystal, Kinetic Crystal, Kinetic Crystal, Kinetic Crystal.